in Wilderness Park. All park users are welcome to contribute. It will run from 6:30 to 8 p.m. and where is Woods Park Place, 3131 O Street, lower level training center, and a follow-up meeting will be in January. And the city wants public's input about Wilderness Park changes. Kyle Clouston started running the tree-lined trails of Wilderness Park with his Lincoln East High School cross-country team 20 years ago, and he never really left. The ultra-marathoner trains there 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes logging 50 miles in a single session. It is secluded in a good way. You don't have to worry about road crossings and other traffic. I see more deer out there than I do people, but he's been running into closed bridges lately, making it difficult to piece together longer loops from the park's trail system. My route has had to alter, he said. It forced me to shorten the route or explore alternatives. The nearly 1,500-acre park on Lincoln's southwest side hugs Salt Creek and its tributaries, creating a 7-mile ribbon of trees and trails stretching from Saltillo Road to Van Dorn Street. The winding waterway keeps the park wild, nurturing the woods, attracting animals, and making straight lines impractical, but they also require a series of bridges to keep the park connected. The park is pretty big, but the stream cuts right through it, said Kenna Lederman, who runs and bikes and walks in the Wilderness Park with her Chocolate Lab mix barley, and has adopted a 4-mile stretch of trail. Being able to get away from one side to the other side is very vital to enjoy the park. That has been a challenge for the city, which is on the verge of replacing one bridge, repairing a second, and removing a third. And in the middle of that, it is launching a long-term look at the future of the park and the bridge's low-water crossings and reroutes needed for users to move from one side to the other. The main goal is to try to keep the north-south connectivity through the entire park, said Sarah Hartzel, a planner with the Lincoln Parks and Recreation Department. We'd like to be able to start at the north end and go way down to the south end and not be disconnected. But because of broken pilings, missing rails, and higher than expected bids on bridges, that is not possible right now. The city has had planned to be finished with the southernmost bridge, a 120-foot span over Salt Creek near Saltillo Road this year, but hasn't even started construction. Bids came in higher than the $430,000 cost the city had budgeted, so the city increased its budget and rebid the project last month. It now plans to award a contract and begin work this winter, Hartzell said. The original Wilderness South Bridge collapsed 9 years ago after a group of children jumped on it in unison, trying to make it sway. Northwest of the 14th Street trailhead, the Yankee Hill Horse Bridge has been closed since 2017 after the railings disappeared and an inspector found too much bounce. That one is one where there's no way to reroute. You either have to go over the tributary or through it with a low water crossing, Hartzell said. We have to do something there. The city was set to fix the bridge earlier this year and had the engineering and permits in hand, but those bids also came in too high. It will try again this winter with an estimated cost of $57,500. But the bridge causing the most concern for users is Hinterlands Bridge, a 65-foot narrow walkway over a Salt Creek tributary near the old Rock Island Railroad trestle. The bridge connects the old Cheney Road and the South 14th Street trailheads on the park's east side, one of the most popular stretches of the single track. Earlier this fall, an inspector was looking for rot in one of its pilings, hitting it with his hammer to listen for hollow sounds, and it snapped and displaced immediately, Hartzell said. Not only was the piling rotten, it was under enough stress that when it snapped, it shifted a good 8 to 10 inches. Wow. Here's Lindsay.
That's a little
scary.
Yeah. From the front page of the Midland section, partnership aims to help with mental health issues. In what's billed as a first-of-its-kind partnership, 4 local health systems have joined with Heartland Family Services and other organizations to help residents in Northeast Omaha address behavioral health challenges in the community. Omaha is one of 18 cities across the country to receive funding this year through the BUILD, or Build Health Challenge, a national collaborative that works with communities to address what are known as the social determinants of health. Many involve environmental factors, such as the availability of adequate housing and transportation that impact residents' health, and in this case, mental health. The collaborative awarded $250,000 over 2.5 years, which will be matched by equal contributions from the 4 health systems: CHI Health, Children's Hospital and Medical Center, Methodist Health System, and Nebraska Medicine, to bring total funding to $500,000. Nikki Clark, Heartland Family Services Vice President for Community Wellbeing, said the Omaha Group's unique collaboration, including the involvement of 4 health systems, made Omaha's application stand out. The partners announced the award at a press conference Wednesday. The current round of awards brings the number of communities to receive funding through the program to 55. The nearest is in Des Moines. Build Health funders include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. Additional partners in the Omaha project include the Douglas County Health Department, Live Well Omaha, the University of Nebraska Medical Center's College of Public Health, Charles Drew Health Center, and Holy Name Housing Corporation. Pete Festerson, CHI Health's Vice President for Strategy and Public Affairs, said officials in every field, from education to law enforcement, increasingly are recognizing the importance of behavioral health in what they do. 1 in 7 families in the state are impacted by behavioral health issues. This is one of the most important things we can be doing to have an impact on the health of our community, he said. But Clark stressed that North Omaha residents and what they want in their community will drive what comes from the initiative. The partners will provide the resources. This is us, as partners, being on tap for residents rather than on top, she said. The first step will be to hire someone from the neighborhood to lead the collaborative. Organizers also will begin meeting with neighborhood residents to begin determining what issues they want to address, Clark said. The group hopes to have an action plan by the middle of next year. Eventually, the idea would be to replicate the model in other neighborhoods that face significant health disparities, she said. Here's Bill.
From the Journal-Star, police say man suffers severe stab wounds. Suspect faces charges of assault and the use of a weapon. Lincoln police have released the name of the man who was stabbed multiple times outside an apartment south of 48th and O early Wednesday. A driver in the area called 911 after seeing someone lying on a corner at the intersection of 48th and O just after 1 a.m. Officer Luke Bonkowicz said, "Officers arrived to find a 52-year-old Scott Seimer unconscious with stab wounds to his neck, chest, and hands," Bonkowicz said. Lincoln Fire and Rescue transported Seimer to a local hospital where he was in critical but stable condition Wednesday by evening, according to LPD. Lawson C. Ballard, age 26, was arrested on suspicion of stabbing Seimer. Ballard was found in an apartment in the 300 block of South 48th by on-scene officers who followed a blood trail. Ballard was covered in blood, but uninjured, according to officers. Police believe he hired Seimer to be a private investigator, Bonkowicz said. Between 11:20 a.m. Tuesday into early Wednesday, Seimer demanded more and more money from Ballard, he said. While the two were on the steps of Ballard's apartment building, Ballard believed he was being scammed and stabbed Seimer multiple times, following a struggle over the knife. Ballard pushed the man down, police reported. Ballard claims he acted in self-defense, Bonkowicz said. He was taken to jail on suspicion of first-degree assault and use of a weapon to commit a felony. Police are not looking for any other suspects. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. From the Midland section, inmates can ask to be transferred to home states. From Lincoln. The Nebraska Corrections Department has asked more than 600 inmates to say if they would prefer to serve their sentences in facilities in their home states, opening the door to transfers that could help ease overcrowding in Nebraska's prisons. The Corrections Department said in letters to the prisoners last week that the department understands that transfers to their home states would place some inmates closer to family and friends. Having strong, supportive relationships is important both during and after your incarceration, Chief of Operations Diane Sabatka-Ryan said in the letters, so we would like to offer you the opportunity to be considered for an interstate transfer to your home state at no cost to you. Applications must be submitted by December the 31st. Transfers would be carried out through Nebraska state statutes and the Interstate Corrections Compact Act, said Laura Strimple, Department Chief of Staff. She told the Journal-Star that it would be up to the receiving state to approve the transfer. If transfers are approved, housing costs will fall to those states. Why would other states, many with overcrowding problems of their own, accept such transfers? Strempel said the states must make their own determinations based on their system requirements and policies. In neighbouring Iowa, the prison system was at 121% of capacity on Wednesday and included 253 inmates who list Nebraska as their birth state. Iowa prison spokesman Cord Overton told the Associated Press that transfers often are done as swaps, an Iowa prisoner traded for another state's prisoner at the time or in the future. Iowa doesn't have a program encouraging prisoners to request transfers to home states, Overton said. He said his department would review each request from Nebraska inmates individually to decide whether the transfer would be in the best interest of the requesting inmate, among other considerations such as capacity and security concerns. Nebraska State Senator Steve Lathrop, chairman of the legislature's Judiciary Committee, said the letter showed that the department is trying to resolve overcrowding, but that they also show Nebraska prisons are at a crisis level. I certainly don't have any objection to it or any reason to have a problem with it, Lathrop said. A 2015 Nebraska law mandates that the governor must declare a prison overcrowding emergency if the population isn't below 140% on July the 1st, 2020. The population has hovered at about 160% of design capacity recently, and last month Corrections Director Scott Frakes reported that Nebraska State Penitentiary in Lincoln was at 190% capacity. Frakes said in January that he doubted the department will meet that deadline. Here's Bill.
Thank you. Columbus may link to Great American Rail Trail. From Columbus. The long, winding path of the Great American Rail Trail could roll through Columbus. Doug Moore, Public Property Director for the City of Columbus, discussed how local trails could tie in with the national route at the Board of Parks Commissioners meeting Tuesday. In Columbus, we'll use the trail we currently have, Moore said. We'll use the Lost Creek Trail, the Wilderness Park Trail, the Sunset Park Trail, and the Bob White Trail. Try to use those that are already in our community, then we have to connect to the communities. That is the challenge. The Great American Rail Trail is a project of the Rails to Trails Conservancy, an organization that started the project in order to convert old train lines into trails for biking and hiking. More than half of the path is complete, however, there are still gaps in the route. In Nebraska, the preferred route follows each urban trails in Lincoln and Omaha, and the Mopac Trail, linking the cities, as well as the Cowboy Trail across the northern part of the state. However, a large swath from Brainerd to Norfolk is not complete. That's where Columbus comes in, and more recently attended a meeting along with Deb Losicki, director of the Platte County Convention and Visitors Bureau, with organizers. We think this would be a good thing to get through Columbus, Moore said. We're trying to work with them on possible ways to get the trail from Norfolk to Columbus. It's going to be a challenge because there's things like going over rivers, like a big one by the name of the Platte, that might be a difficult thing to do. Moore is hopeful that the trail, if developed, could bring more business to Columbus while also making the town a destination for people looking for a refreshing ride in the great outdoors. They would stop and stay overnight in motels and use our restaurants, Moore said. It's hard to say right now, but its impact would be pretty good for our community. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. From the Midland section, ex-chancellor helped build UNMC into what it is today. Known to friends and colleagues as quiet yet capable of making tough decisions, Dr. Charles Andrews also is recognized for his key role in setting the University of Nebraska Medical Center on many of the pathways that it continues to follow today. Andrews, UNMC's fifth chancellor, was instrumental in establishing UNMC as a leader in solid organ and bone marrow transplantation. He also targeted cancer, rural health, geriatrics, and biotechnology as areas of excellence. Andrews, who served as chancellor from 1983 to 1991, died Saturday at the Nebraska Medical Center following a recent stroke. He was 94. I personally would give Charlie Andrews credit for the beginnings of making UNMC a great institution, said former Senator Bob Kerrey, who was Nebraska's governor while Andrews was chancellor. I think Charlie laid the foundation for what we have today. Andrews' formula for success, according to a 1990 interview with the World Herald, was simple. Obtain the best facilities you can, recruit top faculty members and researchers, and then let them go about with their work. Andrews said at the time that he encouraged staff and faculty to forge ahead with innovative research projects. From 1983 to 1990, total research grants grew from $5.8 million to $19.6 million. Economic times were tough in the mid-1980s, and the state faced budget cuts. Andrews proposed closing the College of Pharmacy and other programs rather than across-the-board trims. Ultimately, the Board of Regents voted down the proposal. Andrews, according to UNMC archives, got funding to start the liver transplantation program, which has become part of its busy solid organ transplant program. As of October the 31st, teams had transplanted 268 organs in 2019, and if that pace holds, they would be on track to transplant 322 for the year. It was a watershed moment that had lasting impact, said Dr. Michael Sorrell, Professor and Distinguished Chair of Internal Medicine. I've always felt that he was one of our greatest chancellors, and his stand during the pharmacy controversy was extraordinary. When Andrews arrived, the Epley Institute for Research in Cancer and Allied Diseases was one of 15 basic laboratory research centers in the U.S. Today, it's under the umbrella of the Fred and Pamela Buffett Cancer Center, one of 69 National Cancer Institute designated centers in the country. Andrews also helped initiate several UNMC programs that address the shortage of rural health professionals in Nebraska. Kerry said Andrews had the insight that the best way to increase the number of practitioners in rural Nebraska was to recruit them from rural Nebraska. It's worked not just in Nebraska, but elsewhere too, he said. Dr. Jane Potter, a professor in UNMC's Geriatrics, Gerontology and Palliative Care Division, said Andrews felt strongly that older Nebraskans deserved attention from UNMC. The University Geriatric Center, where students in multiple fields could receive training in geriatric care, opened in 1988. The geriatrics program is now housed in the Homestead Center for Successful Aging. Before joining UNMC, he was a faculty member and vice president for health science at West Virginia University Medical Center in Morgantown for 21 years. Prior to that, he'd held faculty positions at the University of Minnesota, the University of Kansas City School of Dentistry, and the University of Kansas Medical Center in Kansas City. He remained active after retiring from UNMC, serving as interim executive vice chancellor for the University of Kansas Medical Center from 1994 to 1995. He also served as chief medical officer for Nebraska in the late 1990s. He served in the U.S. Army from 1943 to 1946 during World War II and as a captain in the U.S. Air Force from 1951 to 1953 during the Korean War. He was preceded in death by Teresa, his second wife of 33 years. Here's Bill.
Thank you. 10:45 is the time, and we're going to start with the Lincoln Journal obituaries. The first is Beeson, B-E-E-S-O-N, Harriet Lucille Byrne, B-Y-R-N-E, Beeson, age 90. Arrangements are pending. Clark, Sharon K. Clark, age 72. Memorials are suggested to the family for later designation. Arrangements by Fusselman Allen Harvey Funeral Home, Syracuse, Nebraska. Foster, Shirley J. Foster, age 77. Memorials in lieu of flowers to Clinic with a Heart or Madonna Rehabilitation Hospital. The Nebraska Cremation Society is handling the arrangements. Nemec, Betty A. Nemec, aged 89, and that's Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. Reed, spelled R-I-E-D, I hope that's right, Julie E. Reed, age 60. The Nebraska Cremation Society is handling the arrangements. The last is Lent, Van Lent, Jeffrey Craig Van Lent, age 55. Memorials can be sent to the Columbus Scotus High School, and Bethers Mazer and Love Funeral Home will be handling the arrangements, and those are the deaths and funerals in the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Thanks, Bill. From the World Herald, Armstrong, Norman N. Armstrong, age 93. He was a veteran. Graveside memorial service and burial with full military honors will be held Saturday, November the 23rd at 10:30 a.m. at Prospect Hill Cemetery in Elkhorn, Nebraska, with celebration of life following at Reichenmuth Funeral Home in Elkhorn. Please designate memorials to either the Waterloo Volunteer Fire Department or the American Legion Post number 58 of Valley, Nebraska. Reichenmuth Funeral Home is handling arrangements. Kane, Carol Marie Kane, previous name Glade, aged 88. Born May the 13th, 1931, passed away November the 19th. Memorial service Saturday, November the 23rd at 11 a.m. at West Lawn Hillcrest. Who is handling the arrangements? Camelink, Carmen Camelink, known as Nines or Nines, spelled N-I-N-E-S, age 76. Born February the 28th, 1943, passed away November the 16th. Funeral Mass Friday, 10 a.m., St. Mary Catholic Church in Bellevue. Corisco Larkins Dasquitz Funeral Home is handling arrangements. Kavrik, Kazuko Kavrik, known as K, previous maiden name Goto, age 91. Born April the 24th, 1928, passed away November the 17th. Funeral service Friday, November the 22nd, 1 p.m. at the West Centre Chapel. Hippie Hoppen Dvorak Cutler, West Centre Chapel is handling arrangements. Erickson, Lloyd E. Erickson, aged 90, passed away November the 18th. There are no services and no funeral home is listed. Friend, Phyllis T. Friend, aged 90, born February the 15th, 1929, passed away November the 17th. Vigil service Friday, November the 22nd, 9:30 a.m. at St. Gerald Catholic Church, followed by a Mass of Christian burial at 10 a.m. In lieu of flowers, memorials are suggested to St. Croix, spelled C-R-O-I-X, Hospice. Hippie Hoppen Dvorak Cutler, West Centre Chapel is handling arrangements. Gerard, Joan Marie Gerard, maiden name Alt, A-L-T, age 64. Born October the 11th, 1955, passed away November the 19th. Mass of Christian burial, Saturday, November the 23rd at 12 noon at Mary Our Queen Catholic Church. Memorials are suggested to Mary Our Queen Early Childhood Education and Youth Centre. Hippie Hoffen Dvorak Cutler, West Centre Chapel is handling arrangements. Hansen, Robert Hansen, known as Bob, age 74. He was a veteran. Born March the 18th, 1945, passed away November the 6th. Memorial service Friday, 9 a.m. at John A. Gentleman 72nd Street Chapel. John A. Gentleman Mortuaries and Crematory is handling arrangements. Hansen, Larry P. Hansen, age 72. Born October the 21st, 1947, passed away November the 15th. Funeral service Friday, November the 22nd, 10 a.m. at St. Mark Lutheran Church. Memorials will be directed by the family. Hippie Hoffen Dvorak Cutler, West Centre Chapel is handling arrangements. Hawley, spelled H-A-W-L-E-Y, Darlene Faye Hawley, age 75. Born February the 19th, 1944, passed away November the 19th. Funeral Mass 9 a.m. Saturday, 11:23 at St. Bernard's Catholic Church. Memorials to St. Bernard's Catholic Church. Rhoda Mortuary, 108th Street Chapel is handling arrangements. Hayter Spite. Spite is spelled S-P-I-G-H-T and Hayter is spelled H-A-Y-T-E-R. Deborah L. Hayter Spite, age 69. Born September the 18th, 1950, passed away October the 27th. There are no services. Good Shepherd Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Hester, Joan L. Hester, aged 86. Born November the 20th, 1932, passed away a day before her 87th birthday on November the 19th. Memorial service will be 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, November the 23rd at the funeral home. Memorials may be directed to Hazeldale United Methodist Church. Hoy Kilnowski Funeral Home and Crematory in Council Bluffs is handling arrangements. Hoskinson, Larry L. Hoskinson's, C.M. Sergeant, retired, aged 84. He was a veteran. Born February the 4th, 1935, passed away November the 18th. Funeral Saturday, 10 a.m. at St. Thomas More Catholic Church. Memorials to St. Thomas More Endowment Fund for Mass or for Masses. Corisco Larkins Dasquitz Funeral Home is handling arrangements. Hunsinger, Thomas D. Hunsinger, age 60. He was a veteran. Born April the 28th, 1959, passed away October the 10th. Visitation and time of sharing Thursday, November the 21st from noon to 12:45 at the West Centre Chapel, followed by interment at Omaha National Cemetery at 2 p.m. with military honors. Memorials are suggested to the Open Door Mission. Hippie Hoppen Dvorak Cutler, West Centre Chapel is handling arrangements. Johnson, Nancy Jo Johnson, age 64. Born February the 10th, 1955, passed away November the 13th. Funeral service 11 a.m. at St. Paul United Methodist Church in Papillion. Memorials are suggested to the family. Carla Dolce Mortuary in Papillion is handling arrangements. Karasek, Michael J. Karasek, age 56. born July the 20th, 1963, passed away November the 15th. Memorial service Friday, November the 22nd at 1 p.m. at Dietz United Methodist Church in Omaha. There is no funeral home listed. Kawamoto, Sherry L. Kawamoto, age 63, passed away November the 17th. Memorial service 11 a.m. Saturday, First Presbyterian Church. Memorial donations to Gathy Jackson Charitable Foundation, a foundation for NMO research, or First Presbyterian Church. Reitmuth Funeral Home is handling arrangements. Kilcoyne, Gerald L. Kilcoyne, Jr., known as Jerry. He was 51 and he was a veteran. Born March the 2nd, 1968, passed away November the 18th. Mass of Christian burial Saturday, November the 30th, 11 a.m. at Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church. Interment at Omaha National Cemetery with military honors. Memorials are suggested to the Kilcoyne Children Education Fund. Hifi Hoffman Dvorak Cutler Westcenter Chapel is handling arrangements. Kopiats, Julia Kopiats, age 94. Born September the 30th, 1925, passed away November the 19th. Mass of Christian burial Saturday, 10 a.m. at St. Stanislaus Church. Memorials will be directed by the family. Crisco Larkin Stasquitz Funeral Home is handling arrangements. Martin, Pat Lucille Martin, aged 87. Born October the 1st, 1932, passed away November the 18th. Mass of Christian burial Friday, November the 22nd, 10 a.m. at St. John Church at Creighton University. In lieu of flowers, memorials are suggested to St. John's Church at Creighton University or the College of Public Health, University of Nebraska Medical Center. Hifi Hoppen Dvorak Cutler West Center Chapel is handling arrangements. Morrison, Jeffrey Morrison, age 47, passed away November the 19th. Mass of Christian burial Saturday, November the 23rd, 10 a.m. at Mary Our Queen Catholic Church. Bethany Funeral Home is handling arrangements. Mullisman, Christy L. Mullisman, maiden name Stoltz, age 47. Born September the 5th, 1972, passed away November the 17th. Mass of Christian burial Saturday, November the 23rd, 10:30 a.m. at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Gretna. Memorials will be directed by the family. Hifi Hoffen Dvorak Cutler West Center Chapel is handling arrangements. Pop, spelled P-O-P-P-E, Donald L. Pop, age 86. Born December the 18th, 1933, passed away November the 15th. Family will receive friends Thursday, November the 21st from 10 to 11 a.m. at the West Center Chapel, followed by funeral service at 11. Memorials are suggested to Gethsemane Lutheran Church. Hifi Hoppen Dvorak Cutler West Center Chapel is handling arrangements. Reed, Julie E. Reed of Lincoln, age 60. A private gathering is planned. The Nebraska Cremation Society is handling arrangements. Ryba, Paul F. Ryba, spelled R-Y-B-A. He was a veteran, age 79. Born March 14th, 1940, passed away November the 19th. Complete notice later. John A. Gentleman Mortuaries and Crematories handling arrangements. Sabatini, Teresa M. Sabatini, maiden name Plog, age 100. Born August the 19th, 1919, passed away November the 16th. Graveside service Friday, November the 22nd at 10:30 a.m., Cavalry Cemetery. Memorials will be directed by the family. Hifi Hoffman Dvorak Cutler West Center Chapel is handling arrangements. Shelley or Sheely, spelled S-H-E-L-Y, William D. Shelley, known as Bill, aged 80. He was a veteran. Born February the 21st, 1939, passed away November the 17th. Funeral service Saturday, November the 23rd, 11:30 a.m. Faith Christian Church. In lieu of flowers, memorials are suggested to Boys Town or the Alzheimer's Association. Hifi Hoppen Dvorak Cutler West Center Chapel is handling arrangements. Svensson, Robert H. Svensson, aged 83. He was a veteran. Born November the 18th, 1936, passed away November the 12th. Funeral is Saturday, 10 a.m. at St. Robert's Catholic Church. Memorials to the family for the charities of their choice. Crisco Larkin Stasquitz Funeral Home is handling arrangements. And our last notice is Thurmond, Robert N. Thurmond III, known as Bobby, age 76. Born August the 27th, 1943, passed away November the 14th. Services are Saturday, 10 a.m. at St. James Catholic Church. In lieu of flowers, memorials to Encore Services, a provider for people with intellectual abilities. John A. Gentleman Mortuaries and Crematory 72nd Street Chapel is handling arrangements. And those are the deaths and funeral notices in the Omaha World Herald. Here's Bill.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have a couple of minutes. There was an article here I thought maybe you'd like to hear. Fresh thyme or thyme berries linked to Hep A. 6 people in Nebraska contracted the hepatitis A virus in a multi-state outbreak linked to contaminated fresh, non-organic blackberries from Fresh Time grocery stores in Nebraska, according to state health officials. Those cases were reported over the past 4 weeks by health departments serving Dodge, Douglas, Hall, Hamilton, Merrick, Saunders, and Washington counties. 4 of the 6 who contracted the virus were hospitalized. None of those cases was reported by the Lancaster County Health Department, according to the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services news release. A company spokeswoman said there is no reason to believe that the blackberries were contaminated by in-store handling and that investigators are only concerned with those purchased in September. Fresh Time is cooperating fully in the investigation. We are working with these agencies to identify our suppliers and isolate the source of this contamination. Customers who still have blackberries from this period should discard them immediately or return them to Fresh Time for a full refund. The outbreak is also includes cases in Indiana and Wisconsin, and FDA officials have also issued the public hearing warning in Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Michigan, Missouri, Minnesota, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, the news release said. Public health investigators traced the berries back to a distribution center shipping sourcing Fresh Time stores in several states. FDA officials urge people not to eat any remaining fresh blackberries brought between September 9th and September the 30th from Fresh Time, including any berries that have been frozen. People who have eaten them in the past 2 weeks and have not been vaccinated against hepatitis A should talk to their doctor about post-exposure prophylaxis, which can prevent the disease, the news release. The virus can cause liver disease and can cause mild illness lasting a few weeks to severe illness lasting several months. Hepatitis A symptoms include fever, tiredness, nausea, vomiting, joint pain, severe stomach pains, and diarrhea, yellowing skin or eyes, dark urine, and clay-colored bowel movements. Anyone experiencing these symptoms should see a physician. So the time is 11 o'clock. Listeners' memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book listener and supporter. Lindsay and I'll be back very shortly. We hope that you will be too. And here's Ryan.
I'm supposed to go to a friend's early Thanksgiving party on Saturday, and I'm making free salad. I guess I better reach.
You know that very.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, you go there, and how do you? I mean, you rinse them off with water, but
that doesn't kill them. Oopsie daisy.
Oopsie.
Omaha.
But that's not going to take care of everything, one would think.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this mid-morning break.
I mean, for a while they had a scare about fruit, and so when my children were little, I would bring every fruit home, and I would wash it in soapy water.
Oh, for God's sake.
We
rinse all of ours, but we don't wash.
I don't wash. And I stopped doing that, but maybe it's not doing anything.
Potato medley.
Well, most of it went on the paper.
Let's see, where are we going? Editorials.
Oh, yes.
Diced pears and 1% milk. Help H-E-L-P Adult Services.
Oh, that was a interesting and simple. Just
that provides a
worrisome.
for those in need of items such as wheelchairs and
Gotta remember that thing's on.
walkers,
So they saw me spill.
Yeah.
etc. Because the equipment is donated, such items have been made available for rental.
I have
for
spilled
minimal
a few
fee
times
compared
over my
to purchasing.
career.
Well, usually you've got the water.
Mm-hmm.
See, now with my water, I do have that in a bottle with the thing, and that's fine. It's just I didn't have the top one.
If you have a wheelchair
Oh well.
or other medical equipment items that is in good condition,
So this was on the front. So turn on the chair. The holidays are here. So it has, something for me to. Okay, well that's things you can go and do. And then it starts listing them,
are located
and then it goes on.
Oh my God.
South 47th Street.
I can't list all of those things.
A good night, no.
No, I mean, I'll do the little blurb,
Please call.
you know, and I was looking to see if there's a...
341-655.
Tell them to get in the mood and find a nice place.
Yes, I guess go and look open, you know, because they have too many to read.
Do you know someone with Parkinson's?
No, I don't.
If so, join us
But,
at Heritage at Fox
I mean, there's so
Farm
many.
the second Tuesday of each month at 2
I know
p.m. for a
one of my
Parkinson's
friends' mother
caregiver support
had it.
group.
And,
You will
I
gain
don't-
she was
knowledge on
just
various
so
topics,
shaky, it was just
friendships that
pathetic.
go beyond the group,
The,
information
I mean, my
from
father's
speakers
got
and experts,
essential
along with
tremors, which is
information
common
on
of older people, you know,
conferences,
and so his
conferences,
writing is
webinars,
just
etc.
awful. So,
There will be time to ask
So when
questions.
he's
I can
asked-
identify with that.
so when he's, you know, asking me to, you know,
Again,
do you want,
this
I
is
mean,
the
I can write the
second
check and you can just sign it, you know,
at
it's
2
when
p.m.
Mhm.
right,
at the
because I go and buy
Heritage at
groceries and
Fox
stuff.
Run in Council Bluffs.
Um,
The address is
but yeah, it's,
3121 McInerney Drive.
so it's terrible.
Phone
Well,
number
but there's a new
712
thing where they had a
256
non-invasive,
2741.
they zapped a laser into your brain and they were, and it cured it. I
Oh,
mean, it didn't just make it better for a little while.
You can now
It-
purchase up to
It actually got
5
rid of it, and it
people
was non-invasive as opposed to going in and putting electric in. You know,
Oh, God.
you got to drill a hole in the head and
Oh.
those kinds of things.
Those share will
Anyway, but yes, it seems
flexible digital card option.
there are times. Have you watched any of the impeachment stuff?
A little bit. I'm not a big fan, but yeah.
No, but sometimes you just listen to these people and you just think,
of $50 per month.
Oh,
This is an ink.
And
there is a giant divide.
there's a huge divide, and the Republicans, they just, you know, it's, yes, but okay, so there's a quid pro quo, but it didn't include the aid, right? I mean,
Yeah. Oh,
it was just political information that he wanted.
they are rabid.
They are. What, how does he have such this hold?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it. I was promised I wasn't going to make big because I, you know, it's, you know, I went to him and he said, oh, just by the way, and I said, oh, I'll have to remember not to go.
The flu shot protects
If I'm reading something, you know, I just go, what on earth would they be? But anyway, you starting or mine? Because you only read a little tiny bit.
Okay.
And I
Okay,
had,
I'll do my letters to the editor.
Okay. Sounds like a
I'm
plan.
intrigued by them.
Yeah, well, they usually a little bit longer, and some of them, we've got some in here, but I've got, I only have time to do 2 editorials, so.
Quick announcement. I apologize to everybody. For those of you trying to access our podcasts on our website or iTunes, right now we seem to be having technical difficulties with our podcast service. So the podcast for the last few days of the live newspapers, as well as the grocery ads and the department store ads for this week are not currently available. We are working toward a resolution with our podcast service. It's ongoing. So again, we apologize for any inconvenience, and we will, I'm saving our back podcasts. We'll get them all up as soon as we can get this resolved, whatever it might be. So we apologize again for your inconvenience, and we are working on a problem with our podcast service. That being said, let's go back to Studio A now for the remainder of the Lincoln Journal Star Omaha World Herald. Once again, coming to the microphones, it is the wonderful Lindsay Hawley and Bill Everhart. Go ahead, guys.
Oh, thank you. Here are the letters to the editor from the opinion page of the Journal Star. Bankers, too, worried about climate. When the Federal Reserve Bank starts warning its peers about the risks of climate change, it might be time for our government to take action. Executive Vice President Kevin Stiroh, S-T-I-R-O-H, points to dramatic increases in loss, $500 billion in direct losses over the past 5 years due to climate and weather-related events. He is concerned about the physical risk that disrupts business, destroys capital, and interrupts economic activity. Risk management is tool banks and insurance companies use every day when insuring a person or business or deciding on business or personal loans. Stiroh said, supervisors of banks and insurance companies, I presume, should focus on the risks that emerge along the path decided by the public at large and their elected governments. The Federal Reserve can't make policy, but they are sending out a clarion call for federal action. We need our senators, Deb Fischer and Ben Sass, and Representative Jeff Fortenberry, to acknowledge his advice and protect our citizens and economy by supporting policy to address climate change. There is a market-based carbon pricing bill in the House Energy and Innovation and Carbon Dividends Act, EICDA, by 40%, with lower carbon emissions by 40% in 12 years by making fossil fuel companies pay the true cost of polluting. Instead of taking the fees paid by the fossil fuel companies and growing government, EICDA sends the money back to the Americans in the form of a dividend check. Conservative economists agree that this market-based on approach will spur business of an innovation, increase jobs, and grow our economy. Can we invest in America while stopping climate change? Yes, and the time is to do it now. That was contributed by Moni, M-O-N-I, Usaz, U-S-A-S-Z of Lincoln. And the other is historical claims need verification. I wonder, does Michael Courtney have any documentation at all from the Constitutional Convention, the Federalist Papers, or anyone who supports the passage of the Bill of Rights for his claim the story was maintaining a God-given right, November 15th, that the founders wrote the Second Amendment to provide for an armed citizenry, for protection against tyrannical government? If he does, he ought to have cited it, for the claims at least sound like it came from superheated imaginations of the self-appointed militias of the last 30 years. Perhaps we can leave aside his claim that the right to bear arms was ordained by God. Questions of faith are not subject to verification, but claims about history are, and that was penned by Scott Stanfield of Lincoln. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. From the opinion pages of the World Herald, countries want to shut off the internet and hope. The following editorial appeared in the Washington Post. Iran had a blunt solution this past weekend to an eruption of protests by angry citizens. Turn off the internet. All of it. Web shutdowns have become a common strategy for oppressive governments, but experts say that this weekend's response to widespread demonstrations over a spike in gasoline prices is the biggest yet. It took officials 24 hours to achieve their aim, but once they did, only 5% of regular users, including top politicians such as the Supreme Leader, were still online. Those who were cut off were unable to communicate beyond Iran's borders and within them. Iran's move is notable for its complexity. Many developing nations whose leaders have hit the switch recently have had to do just that, hit the switch, and only one, because the country connects through a single state-sponsored service provider. The internet in Iran, by contrast, is more diverse. The government didn't purchase it off the shelf for an all-in-one installation, but private contractors built it bit by bit. Taking it away required hitting multiple switches or sending multiple orders to multiple parties. The threat going forward is that the nations that remain mostly unwired will create networks that are, as Al Toka of watchdog organization NetBlocks puts it, quote, disruptible by design, much like China's carefully constructed Great Firewall. These nations, mostly in Africa and Latin America, are already at the center of a battle over whether the web will remain worldwide at all or whether countries will maintain sovereign internets with tight government control. A law laying the foundation for this vision of control took effect in Russia this month, allowing the government to block traffic from abroad, quote, in an emergency, and imposing requirements on service providers that would make it easier to impose the sort of shutdown that Iran achieved this past weekend, except perhaps without the 24-hour slog. Russia also led a United Nations resolution whose end goal is a treaty that could expand the definition of cybercrime so broadly and give governments so much leeway to prevent supposed incursions that all sorts of ordinary uses of the internet could end up prohibited. Russia, China, and their allies want the same thing Iran wanted over the weekend, to shut up and shut in their citizens. They want to redirect the international community away from its long-standing focus on freedom on the internet by casting the web as a dark place full of dangers, even as they are often the ones doing the attacking. Those countries that still believe the internet has light to offer can't afford to let the worst offenders lead the way to extinguishing it. Here's Bill.
Here is a Nebraska perspective from the Omaha World Herald. Canines and corrections working well. A program called Second Chance Pups, now in its 15th year in partnership with the Nebraska State Penitentiary, is beneficial for humans and canines alike. It is a terrific idea. Inmates selected for the program train dogs that have been taken in by animal shelters and rescue facilities. The canines are vaccinated, groomed, spayed, or neutered, and microchipped. Once the training is completed, the dogs are adopted out. The program recently completed its 50th rotation of dogs. So far, Second Chance Pups has enabled adoption of more than 450 dogs, and some 350 inmates have helped the creatures. Anyone who has worked with animals understands how they have the potential to draw out one's best self. I like the fact that we can save 5 or 6 dogs every few months, said Robert Duncan, who has taken part in the program for 2 years. Scott Frakes, director of the Department of Correctional Services, is right that the effect can be transformational for participants in the most positive sense. This creative approach to rehabilitation is well deserving of the public's salute. And that was from the Omaha World Herald. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. From the World Herald, Jules Whitcover. Republicans in Congress continue to dig in. From Washington. The first 3 days of the House's Democratic impeachment case against President Donald Trump provided further evidence of his complicity in seeking political dirt on 2020 presidential candidate Joe Biden. But the Republicans on Capitol Hill show no signs yet of abandoning him. Tuesday's witnesses, returning Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman of the National Security Council and Jennifer Williams, a Russia advisor for Vice President Mike Pence, offered additional confirmation of previous reports that Trump held up nearly $400 million in military aid to Ukraine to obtain political dirt on former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter, who formerly was a board member of Burisma, a giant Ukrainian energy company. Both Vindman and Williams testified that they were aware of what has been characterized as a quid pro quo in the wake of another U.S. diplomat, David Holmes, testifying that he had heard Trump on a phone call to the U.S. ambassador to the European Union, Gordon Sondland. Trump asked Sondland if Ukraine agreed to play ball on the Bidens, and Sondland answered in the affirmative. Sondland later told Holmes that Trump's prime interest was, quote, the big stuff, getting Ukraine to investigate the Bidens rather than pursuing corruption in Ukraine, which Joe Biden had been working to root out during the Obama administration. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has charged Trump's actions were bribery, an impeachable offense specifically mentioned in the Constitution as a, quote, high crime or misdemeanor that could become an article of impeachment. The aid funds were eventually released to Ukraine, but there was no such Ukraine inquiry, leading the Republicans to claim that no deal ever was consummated. The defending Republicans on the Special House Impeachment Committee dismissed the newest evidence as more hearsay, but Holmes insisted Friday he had clearly recognized Trump's voice on the call to Sondland in a Kyiv restaurant. The Democrats' case was further reinforced by a withering Trump tweet on Friday against former American ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, whom the president fired amid the quid pro quo caper. Special Committee Chairman Representative Adam Schiff of California told reporters thereafter he had just heard, quote, witness intimidation in real time in Trump's tweet, suggesting that it too could constitute an impeachable offense. In Tuesday's hearing, the Republican Committee Counsel cross-examined Vindman, a naturalized U.S. citizen who immigrated from Ukraine as a small child and who became a decorated combat soldier. As part of a campaign to question Vindman's American patriotism, the Republicans' counsel made a point of noting that Vindman recently had been offered the post of Ukrainian defense minister. Vindman said he quickly rejected it, noting his commitment and long military service to his adopted country. It was a particularly ugly moment in the session. The committee's ranking Republican, Representative Devin Nunes of California, continued earlier efforts to cast the impeachment inquiry as a naked partisan campaign to deprive Trump of his duly elected presidency. He accused the majority Democrats and Schiff of colluding with the original and still anonymous whistleblower on Trump's alleged malfeasance in office. Nunes called for subpoenaing the whistleblower to testify, whereupon Schiff reaffirmed the committee's determination to shield his or her identity under the federal protection law. Meanwhile, the Democrats continue to hope the wide exposure via national television of the testimony by veteran distinguished foreign policy professionals, coupled with Trump's brutal tweets against Yovanovitch, will only shake loose enough GOP support in the Senate to make Trump only the third American president impeached. Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton were impeached by the House but were acquitted by the Senate, where a 2/3 vote is required to convict. This time, the issue is as much a domestic one as it is the conduct of foreign policy. Trump has run roughshod over normal standards and practices that successfully guided American policy in leading the Western alliance after World War II, through the Cold War against communism to the present time a threatened Russian global resurgence. In going after Biden, a potential 2020 challenger, the president again demonstrated there is no limit to what he will do to hold on to his office. Here's Bill.
Thank you. 11:17 is the time. Another of the Nebraska perspectives comes from, or who does that come from? From the Grand Island Independent. And it says, plan for memorials balances tribute safety. When a tragedy happens on a state highway, there typically are many people who are stricken with grief and struggling for a way to remember their loved ones. Many of us ask what they can do to prevent this from happening to another family. A new roadside memorial policy from the Nebraska Department of Transportation may cause some concern among families who want to memorialize a loved one who died in a traffic crash. But families should see this as a way to ensure that they have a way to do just that while ensuring they do not pose hazards to people driving on state highways. The state has started a process for families to apply for a memorial that will be created by the state and placed as close to the scene of the crash as possible. Immediate family members can now apply for NDOT-produced sign to be erected in a requested location in the state right-of-way as a memorial for 2 years after installation. We want to recognize grieving families while balancing our responsibility of increasing safety on Nebraska's highway system, said Kyle Schnuis, the State Transportation Department Director. Each memorial sign will include a safety message chosen by the family from 5 available options. Please drive safely. Seat belts save lives. Don't drink and drive. Don't text and drive. And don't drive impaired. And will also display the name of the individual being memorialized. The department has emphasized that it will continue to work with family members who currently have private memorials on the state highway system. It is understandable that the memorials created by individual families in the past could have created safety hazards. This new process will ensure that they can be placed safely and help grieving families memorialize their loved ones. And like I said, this came from the Grand Island Independent. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. I have a really quick one on nursing home challenge. Elderly residents are projected to make up a steeply increasing portion of the population in Nebraska's rural counties in coming decades, and that means a steadily growing demand for nursing home services, even as such facilities face major financial challenges. Nebraska policymakers will need to pay close attention to this issue as they set the budget for Medicaid payments that help keep nursing homes in operation. Projections from the University of Nebraska at Omaha indicate this important demographic trend for the state's rural counties. In 2010, residents aged 65 and older made up 19% of the population. The figure is projected to climb to 23.7% by 2020, 31.3% by 2030, and 33.7% by 2050. The figures for Nebraska's urban counties are projected to be much smaller, 14.8% in 2020, then up to 18.2%, and then up to 18.7% by 2050. Meanwhile, a total of 34 nursing homes have closed in Nebraska over the past years. The World Herald and Martha Stoddart reports all but 2 were in rural areas. 14 have closed this year, a record. Only one of the 14 facilities was in an urban area. Where in the rural areas of the state are people going to have to go to get care, says Heath Boddy, President and CEO of the Nebraska Healthcare Association, which represents the majority of Nebraska nursing homes. Nebraska state lawmakers are aware of the issue and have increased nursing home payment rates in the current budget. That moves a help, but the challenge clearly remains. There is no magic solution given the multiple demands on the state budget, but in the face of these sobering demographic trends, Nebraska lawmakers now and in the future must make sure to place nursing home funding among their priorities in deciding the state budget. Here's Bill.
Thank you, Lindsay. Here's Ask Amy. Dear Amy, my partner and I have been living together for 5 years. We are both in our 60s and each have grown children. We are together almost 24/7. We get along beautifully. For as long as I can remember, I get startled very easily. If someone walks quietly into a room, I jump and gasp in shock and fear. I really can't help reacting this way. I have never had a horrible trauma that might cause it, I do remember many years ago my father quietly entering a room and my mother jumping with fear when she saw him. My father seemed to find this funny or entertaining, even knowing how angry she got with him for startling her. Now my partner does this same thing to me, and I hate it. Amy, he claims it is my fault for not anticipating that he will walk into the same room since it's only the two of us at home. But how can I? We have had numerous intense arguments about this, and it still happens at least a few times a week. If I'm reading, cooking, or doing anything quietly by myself, I have asked him to make some kind of noise before approaching me. If he does, I'm not startled, but he says he forgets to do that most of the time. I really don't know how to change my startled response, but like my father, I think he secretly gets a kick out of watching me react the way I do, and it really cheeses me off. Please, any suggestions? Signed, Frady Cat. Dear Frady, the startle response is an important evolutionary reaction to alarm and risk. We all have it, or should have it, to varying degrees. However, in researching your question, I've learned about a genetic disorder called hyperexplexia, which is basically a response that goes beyond merely flinching when a person is startled. Someone with this disorder might jump and gasp, as you described, or in its extreme form, collapse or seem to be having a seizure. For information on this, you can check the National Organization for Rare Disorders, and the website is rarediseases.org/. A very rare but perhaps related disorder went by the fascinating name of jumping freshman of Maine when it was discovered in a population near the Canadian border. I'm not saying that you have hyperexplexia, but because this issue has affected you several times a week, you should do some research and get a professional assessment. Cognitive behavioral therapy or a low-dose anti-anxiety medication might help to subdue your reaction. In terms of your partner, I do think it's possible that he forgets to approach you warily. He also might not realize you're in a particular room when he enters it. I don't know how you can be certain he is secretly entertained by this, but your father's long ago unkind reaction might be influencing you. You should continue to talk about it as you explore the possible cause and treatment, and yes, he should understand. This is serious. Dear Amy, I have a few nosy neighbors who have surprised me by knocking on my door and asking for a tour of my home. After previously overhearing their snarky, critical gossip about perfectly nice people in the neighborhood, they aren't people I want in my home, but of course I say hello and I'm polite when I see them. What do I do when they knock on my door and ask for the tour of my house? They just want to snoop and judge. If I say I'm busy and can't show them around, their response indicates they think my answer is very unusual and unkind, but their request apparently is not. Got any ideas for keeping them out? I'm not very skilled at coming up with quick verbal responses. Thank you. Not interested in the mean scrutiny. She says, dear, not interested. You don't need to come up with anything quick or clever in order to keep nosy people out of your home. You need only say, what an unusual request. But no, I'm not interested in doing that. I hope you have a nice day. Bye-bye. Now, we got one more. Dear Amy, struggling with IGEN dilemma. IGEN? Okay, thank you. Wow, this is hard to read.
Sorry.
Reported that she had an 11-year-old daughter who said she is gay. How does an 11-year-old know for sure what her sexuality is? Signed, Wondering. Dear Wondering, many people say they are acutely aware of their sexuality from very early childhood. This child should be listened to and respected, just as her mother was doing. And that's Amy.
Thanks, Bill.
Here's Lindsay.
From the living section, turn on the cheer, the holidays are here. Omaha, here's a sampling of community events to light up the season. Omaha's Holiday Lights Festival celebrates its 20th year with a twist in the downtown lighting display. The glow moves from Jean Leahy Mall, which is under construction, to the Old Market and continues along 24th Street through North and South Omaha. In addition to thousands of twinkling white lights for the Old Market, organizers promise a flurry of LED snowflakes and reindeer leaping through the sky. The public will have its first official look at dusk November the 25th, although no formal lighting ceremony is planned. The display continues through January the 5th in an area bounded by 10th, 13th, Harney and Jackson Streets. South Omaha will trip the Light Fantastic from 5 to 7 p.m. in November the 29th at Plaza de la Raza, 24th and N Streets. The community lighting ceremony will include a mariachi band and free hot chocolate and cookies. North Omaha will celebrate its first Christmas in the Village from noon to 5, December the 7th along 24th between Ohio and Burdett Streets. As in previous years, the Holiday Lights Festival incorporates sounds of the season, courtesy of local choral groups and other musicians who stroll the old market on Saturday evenings in December. The popular free Family Festival is back too, from noon to 5 p.m. December the 1st, with various downtown arts and cultural organizations participating. The Capital District Ice Rink opens December the 6th and continues through January the 21st at 10th Street and Capitol Avenue. A $10 admission fee includes skate rental, although patrons may bring their own skates. As part of the Shine the Light on Hunger campaign, a portion of the admission fee will be matched by a $100,000 gift from ConAgra Brands Foundation to support Food Bank for the Heartland. The rink will be open daily with the exception of Christmas. Find complete details of the Holiday Lights Festival and turn on the chair for 2019 at holidaylightsfestival.org or oldmarket.com/holidays. There are 32 other events listed in the paper, but I am not going to go through them. Here's Bill.
Here's, excuse me, Laurie Bergman's column. It's a little long, but I hope you enjoy it. We are imprinted by the land where we are born. At least I think that is true, for I know of no other reason that I find cornfields beautiful. My early years were spent in Lincoln, Nebraska. Our parents grew up on farms and many of our relatives lived in rural communities, so we often traveled gravel roads bordered by rolling prairie and rich farmland, kicking up dust clouds behind us as we barreled along. The topic of the conversation in the front seat often turned to corn, usually introduced by Dad with an exclamation of, "Look at that corn." Of course, we looked because if you traveled to Nebraska, you know there are a lot of spectacular attractions lining the roadsides. In spring, tiny emerald green shoots pushed through the ground in straight rows without end. A few weeks later, young stalks shot out gangly leaves at peculiar angles. It was the awkward adolescent stage of corn. At the start of summer, "Look at that corn" was followed by "knee-high" by the 4th of July. And it usually was. And more, as the sun beat down and the days of summer stretched and yawned, the corn grew taller and taller. Husky stalks transformed spindly leaves into huge arched leaves with razor-sharp edges. Now when someone said, "Look at that corn," the response from the back seat was, "How could we look at that corn?" You looked everywhere you looked. All you could see was corn. Corn closed in from both sides. Corn to the left, corn to the right, massive blurs of corn stalks with tassels whipping silk in the air whizzed by as we sped along. Attempting to look directly at the corn as we blew past triggered a terrible maze motion sickness. Summer crawled to an end, and the green leaves began to fade and dry. The once golden silk shriveled and turned a charred brown. After the corn had been harvested, there remained a fullness to those empty fields. Even today, they stand as testimony to perseverance and hard work that dates all the way back to our nation's beginning. Harvested fields are silent witness to the age-old partnership between the Creator and the created, laboring together to bring bounty from the ground. Cornfields and prairies, like the oceans and mountains and sprawling forests, are part of this wide and varied patchwork quilt we call America. Breathtaking reminders that despite our fractures and turmoil, we are blessed to live in a land graced with beauty, abundance, opportunity, and freedom. Count your many blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. And please look at that corn. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. It's 11:31. Moving on to business and money. UAW president steps down as GM sues Fiat Chrysler. From Detroit. United Auto Workers President Gary Jones abruptly resigned Wednesday, capping a tumultuous day that saw union leaders move to oust him and General Motors accuse rival Fiat Chrysler in a lawsuit of bribing union officials to get more favorable contract terms from the UAW. Jones has notified the union that he will retire, his attorney Bruce Maffeo of New York said in an email. The news of Jones came shortly after the UAW's International Executive Board filed paperwork to expel him and Regional Director Vance Pearson from the union over allegations raised by a federal investigation into union corruption that has resulted in multiple arrests starting in 2017. The move to oust the two leaders would have brought union trials for both. Pearson is facing criminal charges while Jones has not been charged, but federal agents raided his suburban Detroit home in August. In the email, Maffeo said Jones decided to step down before learning of the move to oust him. Jones, who has been a UAW member for 44 years and started as a factory worker, stepped down to let the union focus on its core mission of improving the lives of members and their families, Maffeo said. Pearson's status with the union was not clear late Wednesday. A message was left seeking comment from his attorney. Jones' departure came just hours after General Motors filed a racketeering lawsuit against Fiat Chrysler, alleging that its crosstown rival got an unfair business advantage by bribing UAW officials. The unprecedented lawsuit, filed Wednesday in U.S. District Court in Detroit, alleges that FCA was involved in racketeering by paying millions in bribes to get concessions and gain advantages in 3 labor agreements with the union. The lawsuit alleges that Fiat Chrysler corrupted the bargaining process with the UAW in the 2009, 2011, and 2015 union contracts to gain advantages over General Motors. In a statement, Fiat Chrysler called the lawsuit meritless and said it would defend itself vigorously. It also accused GM of trying to disrupt its proposed merger with French automaker PSA Peugeot, as well as ongoing contract talks with the UAW. In addition to Fiat Chrysler, GM's lawsuit names former FCA Labor Relations Chief Alphonse Jacobelli and former FCA officials Jerome Durden and Michael Brown as defendants. All have pleaded guilty in the federal corruption probe. Here's Bill.
Here are some business briefs from the Journal Star. Preferred Popcorn and Valmont are honored. The Nebraska Chamber of Commerce and Industry has named its Nebraska Manufacturers of the Year for 2019. Preferred Popcorn of Chapman received the award for small manufacturers, and Valmont Industries of Valley received the award for large manufacturers. The companies were honored at the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce and Industries annual Manufacturing Summit. Headquartered in Chapman, Preferred Popcorn is a farmer-owned popcorn producer, processor, and supplier that was founded in 1998. It has growers in 7 states, 40 employees in Nebraska, and exports to 70 countries. Valmont Industries was founded in 1946 in Valley and is best known as a manufacturer of center pivot irrigation systems. The company now is a global leader of engineered products and services for infrastructure and water-conserving irrigation equipment and solutions for agriculture. It has 10,000 employees, 86 manufacturing locations in 23 countries around the world, and customers in 100 countries. Macy's data breaches exposed to the customers from Chicago. Department store chain Macy's alerted customers that their personal and payment information may have been hacked on the retailer's website during a 1-week period in October. Macy's said it reported the incident to federal law enforcement after it found a suspicious third party who added an unauthorized computer code on the retailer's website on October 7th. In a letter sent to affected customers, dated November 14th, Macy's said hackers potentially had access to customers' names, address, phone number, and payment card information. According to the letter, Macy's removed the code on October 15th. An investigation by Macy's found that the hacker's code was able to capture information on the retailer's checkout page and its wallet page, which contain customers' payment information. The company said it reported the data breach to relevant bank issuers, including Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. It was not immediately clear how many customers were affected, but a spokesperson for Macy's said in an email statement the incident only involved a small portion of their clients. And Fat Tire Brewer is bought by Kirin, K-I-R-I-N, from Tokyo. New Belgium Brewing, one of the largest craft beer companies in the United States, agreed to be acquired by a unit of Japan's Kirin Holdings Company, the latest independent brewer to be snapped up in an increasingly competitive market. 11:37. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. One last article from the business section. From Washington, Fed minutes. The officials felt 3 rate cuts could be enough. Most Federal Reserve officials believed last month that the 3 rate cuts they have made this year would be enough unless the economy weakened significantly. The minutes of the October Fed report meeting, released Wednesday, revealed that most participants thought that this year's rate cuts would be sufficient to support moderate growth, the continued strong job market, and inflation rising towards the Fed's 2% target level. A couple of Fed officials suggested that this view should be reinforced by additional comments after the meeting that further cuts were unlikely in the near term, unless the economy slowed significantly. The consensus among economists is that the Fed will now pause after having cut rates 3 times in 2019, with its benchmark rate now in a range of 1.5 to 1.75%. The central bank's key rate influences many consumer and business loans. At a press conference after the Fed's October the 30th meeting, Powell had said that, quote, monetary policy is in a good place, end quote. But he added that if developments emerge that cause a material reassessment of our outlook, we would respond accordingly. Policy is not on a preset course. The CMA Group, which tracks trading in the future course of Fed rates, shows a 99% likelihood that rates will remain unchanged at the Fed's next meeting December 10th to 11th. The meetings of the October meeting showed that some participants had argued that the central bank's interest rate stance was already appropriate and that it should take time before deciding whether to further ease credit. But a majority of Fed voters believed it was appropriate to cut rates last month, given the risks associated with slower global growth and trade uncertainty. The Fed's decision was approved 8-2, with Fed Presidents Esther George of Kansas City and Eric Rosengren of Boston dissenting. Here's Bill.
Thank you. Here's the NU and area news. It's 11:39, coming up on 11:40. Concordia and Doane players earned volleyball honors. Concordia's Tara Callahan and Emmy Noyd and Doane's Allison Kunley were named to all Great Plains Athletic Conference first team in volleyball Wednesday. Concordia's Cameron Ofer, a Seward graduate, was named GPAC Freshman of the Year, and Midland sophomore Talia Flores was named the Conference Libero of the Year. Northwestern junior outside hitter Anna Weddle was named GPAC Player of the Year. Callahan has emerged as one of the nation's top setters, ranking 11th nationally in assists per set, 10.71. Noyd leads the Bulldogs with 346 kills, while Ofer was notched 280 kills, 272 digs, and 39 blocks. Kunley led Doane with 434 kills and was second on the team in digs with 345. More volleyball. After helping lead the Lopers to an MIAA regular season championship, Nebraska Kearney's Julianne Jackson was named the league's co-player of the year, and Rick Squires was named the MIAA Coach of the Year. Jackson had 249 kills and 365 digs for the Lopers. Joining Jackson on the All-MIAA first team were teammates Anna and Maddie Squires and M.K. Wolf. In gymnastics, the Nebraska women will hold an inter-squad meet Friday in Mabel Lee Hall at 6 p.m. The event is free and open to the public, who can get a look into the Huskers' routines before the season begins in January. Doors will open for the public at 5:30 p.m. Golf. The Nebraska men announced the signing of Kansas prep golfer Will Harding. The Prairie Village, Kansas native finished 5th at state in 2018 and 7th in 2019 in leading Shawnee Mission East to back-to-back state team titles. Swimming. Nebraska competed with the second day of preliminary races at the Mizzou Invite on Wednesday in Columbia, Missouri. Tori Beeler had the highest Husker placing with the best time in the 200 individual medley. Madison Coughlin and Berkeley Livingston joined her on the evening's qualifying round. Autumn Havig was second in the 500 freestyle prelims, and Izzy Murray advanced to the 100 butterfly finals with an 8th place finish. Diver Sarah Troyer was second in the 3-meter dive to reach the finals. Finally, in high schools, after 10 seasons as head coach, Mike Weiss has stepped down from his post with Lincoln East Volleyball. Weiss, who joined the East in volleyball program in 2002, became only the second head volleyball coach in Spartan history taking over for the legendary Myron Ellerking. White said he wants to dedicate more time and energy to his family and goals as an educator, father, and member of his church. He'll continue to serve as a special ed teacher at East. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. From the sports section of the World Herald, Mavericks counting on collective scoring effort. It's just 5 games into the season, but UNO is starting to reveal how it intends to attack on offense without its top 2 scorers. It's a collective approach. Sure, senior JT Gibson is averaging a team-best 16.8 points, but he's been the Mavericks' actual lead scorer in 2 games. Junior Ayo Akinwole scored 16 points at Wichita State. Junior Matt Pyle went for 22 against Midland, and sophomore Marlon Ruffin finished with 19 at Colorado State. 4 other players have reached double digits at least once. The Mavs, who are working to retool after Zach Jackson and Mitch Hahn, 31.7 points per game, and 2018-19, completed their UNO careers, have been aided by that depth, but they've still dropped 2 games in a row, and they'll be challenged Thursday at Washington State. UNO, who's 2-3, is 2 days removed from a 93-68 defeat at Dayton on Tuesday. The Mags have crossed over 2 time zones and more than 1,700 miles since. Their opponent hasn't played since a home win Sunday. Washington State, under first-year coach Kyle Smith, was picked to finish 11th in the Pac-12 preseason poll. The Cougars, 2-1, have defeated Seattle and Idaho State and lost at Santa Clara. Here's Bill.
From the Journal-Star, offensive line shows improvement. Coach says players getting ready, better and slow and steady. The football game is Saturday, Nebraska at Maryland, 2:30 p.m. On TV, it's the Big Ten Network, and on radio, it's 1498.1. Greg Austin knows a thing or two about learning curves. He and his wife Kelly have 3 little girls, so they, like all parents, have undoubtedly witnessed growth happening at differing uneven paces, depending on the person and the situation. Sorry. So Austin had a metaphor at the ready when was asked about Nebraska offensive line group Wednesday, a unit coming off probably its best performance of the season Saturday, and a loss to Wisconsin, but one that still has a lot of road ahead of it. The improvement has been slow and steady, but that's what you want, Austin said. If I'm teaching my 5-year-old how to ride a bike, then I'm looking for slow and steady improvement in that regard. It's just like if I'm teaching a guy a pass set. That arc, mostly steady but with some hiccups along the way, describes the case for the Husker offensive line, and particularly 2 first starters in left guard Trent Hickson and center Cameron Juergens. Hickson, a former walk-on who earned a scholarship this summer, got benched for the second half against Minnesota on October 12th, but has made strides over the course of 2 bye weeks and 3 games since. Whether it's Trent or anyone else, our guys know they have to come to work and practice better, and their performance is going to be a reflection of their practice, Austin said, particularly to Trent. Trent's a guy that came in for a walk-on, grinded his way to the starting spot, scholarship, etc., etc. Trent's a guy that's going to fall down 7 and get up 8. He's learned through all the lessons from this year, and he's a better player for some of those hard times. He played well. Everybody could have played better. We didn't win the game, right? Juergens, of course, struggled to snap the ball accurately against South Alabama in NU's season opener, the Beatrice native's collegiate debut, but has made significant progress in that department and all around as the season's gone on. He's getting more comfortable, and when he comes off on the sideline now, he gives me more information than he did in the game 2 or 3. We're talking the game on the sideline now, Austin said. The game is slowing down now for a guy like Cam. When you're in that position early, the game is fast and you're learning on every single rep. You're learning, and sometimes you have to learn the hard lessons on Saturdays. But as Austin readily pointed out Wednesday, Juergens fired multiple errant snaps Saturday against Wisconsin, a reminder of the challenges for the redshirt freshman who had never played offensive line before this year. You asked me about the improved snaps 2 weeks ago, right? We've got to improve there, too. Nothing's ever done, Austin said. If we continue to take that mindset and work on the small things, the little things, the eyes, the hands, the footwork, those are the things that make you successful. This is particularly interesting, a moment in time for Austin's group. It's not experienced per se. Tackles Brendan James and Matt Forniak have 31 and 26 starts respectively, and Bo Wilson is now a 2-year starter. But everybody has eligibility remaining beyond this season. Frost last week on the radio said, ideally, Farniak would slide inside to guard next year. On Monday, Farniak, a team captain, said of a potential move after the season, whatever they tell me to do and whatever is best for the team is all I care about. I want this place more than ever to start rolling and start getting wins because people here have worked so hard and they have given everything they have. That kind of move, obviously, would displace a current starter and create an opening, too. NU's two best young tackle prospects at this point are freshman Bryce Benhart and Brant Banks, though sophomore Brock Bando has held up pretty well between guard and tackle as Austin's sixth man this fall. In a sense, then, Austin's room is one that has a growing sense of confidence and stability, but one that is still likely in for an off-season of intrigue. First up, though, is the task of trying to build on a Saturday on which the Huskers averaged 7.6 yards per carry and 8.2 per play. Over the past month, those guys have got better. Why? Because they've gone out and practiced their asses off and their play has been better, Austin said. That's the recipe. Hard work. Everybody wants the quick fix to everything. Get your bottom down and get set and let's go. Get better. Find out what you need to improve and improve it and be intentional about it. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. Some high school notes. Kansas is the latest to offer Millard North Jr. It's not every day a basketball player from Nebraska gets a scholarship offer, let alone attention from Kansas. But much like Hunter Salas's game the past few months, his recruitment has entered rare air. On Wednesday, the Jayhawks became the latest Power 5 program to offer the Millard North Jr. I was excited because it's a Midwest school that has a deep tradition, Salas said. For them to think that I'm good enough to play there, it means a lot. Since 1980, 4 Nebraskans have played at KU on scholarship. Omaha Creighton Prep grad TJ Pugh, Omaha Benson's Jerry Johnson, Omaha South Products Cedric Hunter, and Ron Kellogg from Omaha Northwest. It wasn't just KU that was represented at Millard North's practice Wednesday. The entire Iowa State coaching staff, including head coach Steve Prom, was there, as well as North Carolina State assistant James Johnson. UCLA and Louisville also are planning trips to Omaha, Salas said. The 6'4" wing previously had offers from Creighton, Nebraska, Iowa, Iowa State, Connecticut, Missouri, California, Kansas State, and more. Salas is the number 43 player overall in the 2021 class, according to the 247 Sports Composite. And Scott ranked number 13 nationally. Earlier this month, Omaha Scott clinched its 5th straight Class B state title with a sweep of Omaha Duchesne, and finished 34-5 while playing one of the most challenging schedules in Nebraska. On Wednesday, the Skyhawks earned another accolade, finishing number 13 in the USA Today's Super 25 rankings. Scott faced several of the top Class A teams along with some of the best squads in the nation. The Skyhawks won 4 of 5 matches at a tournament in Chicago, including one over perennial power Louisville, Kentucky. Assumption, which finished number 19 in the poll. Louisville Assumption from Kentucky, which finished number 19 in the poll. Scott can tie a state record by winning a 6th straight title in 2020, something accomplished by 2 other schools, Bellevue West from 1992 to 97 and Shickley from 1987 to 1992. Here's Bill.
Thank you, Lindsay. In Major League Baseball, House members step up for minor leagues. MLB asked to rethink plan to drop 42 teams. From Washington, nearly 1/4 of the members of the U.S. House of Representatives asked Major League Baseball to reconsider its proposal for a restructuring of the minor leagues after the 2020 season that would lead to 42 teams being dropped from their current circuits. Reps Lori Trahan of Democrat of Massachusetts and David McKinley, Republican West Virginia, took the lead in a letter sent Tuesday to Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred and signed by 106 members of the House. The abandonment of minor league clubs by Major League Baseball would devastate our communities, their bond purchasers, and other stakeholders affected by the potential loss of these clubs, the letter said. We want you to fully understand the impact this could have not only on the communities we represent, but also on the long-term support that Congress has always afforded our national pastime on a wide variety of legislative initiatives. The professional baseball agreement between Major League Baseball and the National Association of Professional Baseball Leagues expires after the 2020 season. The 176 minor league teams affiliated with the NAPBL combined to draw 41.5 million fans this year. MLB's initial proposal, first reported by Baseball America on October 18th, would drop 4 AA teams, Binghamton, New York, and Erie, Pennsylvania, of the Eastern League, and Chattanooga and Jackson, Tennessee, of the Southern League. The plan would eliminate the 28 teams from 4 Class A short season and rookie advanced leagues that do not play at spring training complexes, and would lower the minimum guaranteed affiliation agreement from 160 to 120. Major league teams supply players, coaches, and equipment to the minors, and say they spend nearly $500 million annually in salary while receiving back only $18 million. Deputy Commissioner Dan Halem, in a letter to Congress on Tuesday, said MLB wants upgraded stadiums, reduced travel, higher pay, and better accommodations for players, and a more favorable process for reaching affiliation agreements. Halem wrote that it is definitely significantly fewer than 160 affiliates are guaranteed. Dropped communities will be invited to join collegiate summer leagues similar to the Cape Cod League, but under the umbrella of Major League Baseball. Existing independent leagues or a newly created Dream League that also would operate under the auspices of MLB. Here's Lindsay.
Thanks, Bill. From the front page of the sports section, even as a senior, Whit hasn't quit trying to improve. Earlier this month, the Creighton senior who has played every set at libero since joining the program 4 years ago stepped onto the practice court with a puzzle she couldn't solve. Brittany does this from time to time. She embarks on meticulous self-analysis, hoping to eliminate any defects that might hinder her performance in competition. It's a routine for the elite in this sport. One can't sustain excellence without a constant maintenance of footwork, posture, arm mechanics, and mental engagement. That's Whit's view, at least. She's the only player on a top 25 team who's averaging more than 5 digs per set, 5.08, and she's on pace to become the Blue Jays' all-time career leader in digs. Yet a couple of weeks ago, Whit used the lulls between her practice reps to diagnose every part of her technique. I think I can always be better, she said, even if it's just figuring out how I can get another dig in a match. I just love the breakdown of it and the challenge for myself to never get complacent. That mentality hasn't dissipated even as her collegiate career approaches the finish line, as her teammates marvel over her consistency and her coaches applaud her persistence. Whit is coming off a weekend where she averaged 6.17 digs per set in 2 sweeps at Xavier and Butler. She also moved into a tie for third on Creighton's all-time chart for career aces. She's on a pre-med track and under consideration for an academic All-American honor. Her high school coach isn't surprised. She had the same approach during her record-setting career at Omaha Marion. She's got the drive, she's got the work ethic, Marion coach Amy McClay said. You're sometimes like, come on, crack a smile and put that off until tomorrow. But she has a plan. She's super determined. Whit's similar to her teammates in that way. The 12th-ranked Jays can clinch a share of a 6th consecutive Big East regular season title with a win over number 9 Marquette on Friday. Creighton is also in contention for a top 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. But the players often insist that there are no shortcuts, which is why they try not to think about the big picture, and why Whit's mind was racing as she stood on the sideline at practice a couple of weeks back. She had noticed a slight drop-off when targeted by opposing servers. Nothing overly dramatic, just not to her standard. So she subbed in for a handful of reps that day, and then a few more. She assessed and reassessed. Was it her hands or her focus? Did she get caught leaning? I took a couple practices to break down what it was, she said. At first I thought it was my platform, but it ends up being my hips. You know, no matter how good you are, it's always helpful to go back to the basics and build up from there. That's a mindset that Creighton coach Kristen Bertham Booth really appreciates. She's just one of those kids that's going to push herself to the limits in all aspects of her life, Booth said. Here's Bill.
Thank you. In NASCAR, 7-time champ Jimmy Johnson announces retirement. 2020 will be his last full-time season. From Charlotte, North Carolina, Jimmy Johnson sat down next to Jeff Gordon at a 2001 driver meeting and asked the champion if he had time to offer any career advice. Gordon was so impressed with the fellow California native that he encouraged Rick Hendrick to start a team built specifically for the 25-year-old Johnson. It turned into one of the greatest hires in NASCAR history and nudged Gordon aside as the most dominant driver on the track. Now Johnson will follow Gordon and many other NASCAR superstars into retirement as the 7-time champion announced Wednesday he will retire from full-time competition after next season. The 44-year-old Johnson joins an exodus of popular drivers that began when Gordon retired after the 2015 season. Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, Danica Patrick, and Jamie Murray are among those who followed Gordon out the door. Lindsay?
Thanks, Bill. From the World Herald, Bell done with drug tests, from Lauren Park, New Jersey. Le'Veon Bell is throwing a flag on the NFL's drug testing policy. The Jets running back was upset that he's been randomly selected 5 times this season by the league to take tests for performance-enhancing drugs. Quote, "I done had 5 random HGH blood tests in 10 weeks, he tweeted. At NFL, I'm not doing another after today. Whatever you're looking for, obviously it ain't there. Bell doubled down on his comments after practice, saying, "It's getting weird," and reiterating that he will not take additional tests this season, though he stopped short of saying the league is targeting him with the testing. Per NFL rules, players with no previous violations of the policy on performance enhancers won't be tested more than 6 times in a calendar year. If he does get randomly selected for a 6th test over the last 5 weeks of the season, and he refuses to take it, the league could consider it a failed test and choose to discipline him with suspension, a possibility. Do you have something else?
Not much here.
Okay.
Let's see. Thursday's NFL capsule. Colts 6-4 at Texans 6-4. Time 7:20 p.m. It's on TV, Fox, and NFL Network. On radio, it's 1480 and 101.5. The line is Texans by 3.5. And it looks like they're expecting a final score of Texans 27 and 26. And I see that the time is 12 o'clock. Lindsay?
You've done it again. Right on the dot.
We're a team.
How do you do it?
Who has more fun than us?
I don't think anybody does. Anyway, it's been wonderful reading. I hope you've enjoyed it. Try and stay warm today. It's 38 degrees.
Yes, don't let the wind get you.
Yes. Here's Ryan.
Thank you very much, Bill. Who has more fun than you guys? Well, not me, that's for sure. Thank you very much, Bill and Lindsay, for doing your usual excellent
There
job.
was have you ever been down to
This is
the
the
World
Radio
Cup
Talking
horses?
Book
They
Network in Omaha, Nebraska.
jumping and dressage
We're
World
proudly
Cup
serving our
finals.
blind and visually
Been
impaired
down in
persons
Omaha. I used to take my
with
students down there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they had, you know, I could take them free. It was, I look for free events, you know. Gingerbread house is another good one. It's a free events. And you prepare them and so on, and there's
Really quick, before we
education
go,
you can
folks,
do.
if
But
you
it
missed
was,
any portion of today's broadcast,
you know,
can
it was,
always catch the
they
repeats.
had,
You
they'd
can
have
find
little
shows
ponies there,
every
and then
day,
they would
7 days a
have,
week
you know,
from 10 to noon.
Clydesdales and
Oh.
all the
We keep
ones in
them every
between, and so,
evening
and
from 6 to 8
they have a
p.m.
lot of horses there that you can just pet. And
Oh, I'm fascinated by any kind of livestock.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
so, and you know, and they had some dressage, you know, practices, and so you could watch them in the ring, and then they had some show jumping, so you could watch, you know, as kind of these practices, and the rule was, which is great practice for students, you know, it's remember once they start, when the horse starts, there's nothing, you don't talk, you don't whisper, you're quiet, you don't get up, you don't say, "Just a minute, Miss Holly, I need," and so, you know, and they watch them, and you say, "Why did that we know?" It's, "Oh no, it's a horse." So anyway, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
But anyway, well, I hope you have a good week. Stay warm, and I won't see you for 2 weeks.
Hooray! We get a day off.
I know we do. So have a happy Thanksgiving. I'll see you December the whatever it is, 5th, I think it is.
Okay, I'll be here. By the by.
Bye bye. Swing your hips to me.
Want me to take that iPad?
Oh, yes, I usually put it back in your office.
Thank you.
I have every time so far.
Oh, yeah, well, and I was just walking by, so I thought I would do it.
Right, exactly. Piccola.
And you need it preferably before he left. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. My aim is to get it done long before that, but. Oops, sorry. Well, I guess I won't see you next week.
No, I won't.
So
2
have
weeks.
so have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
You too, Lindsay, thank you.
What are you doing?
Nothing. I worked the day before and the day after, so I'm just gonna, I tried to invite me over, so I'll probably.
Yeah, that won't be rated terribly well. Would be my guess. Although maybe she's got some talent. Maybe
A little bit. She did it in October when I saw her. She had a pretty good job.
What did you think?
About an inch longer by the time I see her. We'll see what she can do.
An inch longer than it is now.
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you have a good week. You have a good Thanksgiving.
You too.
Thank you.
Feels good in here. Come on outside, try to go.
I already said goodbye to Ryan, so now I'll say goodbye to you. Manana.
Manana, see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I just did go to that Meriwether thing yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask you about it.
You've been there since.
Oh, well, nonsense, no.
It's huge.
Oh, yeah, it's big.
Wow.
I hear that.
Packed. I did not get to see Ashley, and I asked her to go and know from HR, and she didn't know either, so I'm just thinking about next week.
Yeah, I was going to call her, I wanted to call the gal up in Norfolk, I think, that was so excited to get one. So, and I haven't heard anything from her since she actually got it, so. Well, yeah, that's probably what I'll do.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
I like your bag.
Bag lady.
My friend, she likes the small
tomorrow.
All right.